Have you ever found yourself helping someone who ultimately just caused you a headache? Have you ever felt used or manipulated by people who seem to drain your energy without giving anything back? In today's video, I'm going to reveal 7 types of people you should never help. This is a powerful alert to protect your peace, your energy, and even your time. By watching this video until the end, you will learn to identify these profiles, avoid unnecessary emotional exhaustion, and surround yourself with people who truly matter. This isn't about being selfish, it's about preserving your mental and emotional health. After all, who hasn't reached out a hand only to regret it later? If you've ever experienced situations where your goodwill was turned against you, or if you want to shield yourself from toxic individuals who drain everything you have to offer, stay with me. This could change the way you view your relationships. But first, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and comment below with your city so I can see how far my message is reaching. Type 1. The ungrateful person. You know that type of person who always seems dissatisfied with everything? Well, ingratitude is a behavior that unfortunately we encounter frequently. I often think about how uncomfortable it is to be around someone who doesn't appreciate what we do. The lack of gratitude isn't just a matter of manners, it's an attitude that can deeply impact relationships. When you go out of your way to help someone, you expect at least a little recognition, right? But for the ungrateful person, that seems to make no difference at all. Personal and emotional relationships can be significantly affected by this ingratitude. Imagine how demotivating it is to give your best and receive only indifference in return. The result is a vicious cycle. The more undervalued you feel, the more distant you become from that person. And believe me, over time, that distance becomes almost inevitable. Ingratitude creates an invisible barrier that hinders the development of genuine and healthy connections. Identifying ingratitude in the people around us can be a challenge. Sometimes it's easy to spot, but other times it disguises itself under a veil of friendliness. A clear sign is the lack of acknowledgement during moments when you've put in a lot of effort. Another important aspect is the tendency of such a person to always see themselves as the most affected in any situation, as if the world revolves around them. Recognizing these behaviors is the first step in dealing with them. Dealing with ingratitude isn't an easy task, but it's possible. One strategy I've used is direct communication. Talking openly about how I feel can be uncomfortable, but often brings surprising results. Additionally, learning to set boundaries is crucial. If you notice that ingratitude becomes a constant, it may be time to reevaluate the relationship and decide how far you're willing to go. Finally, it's essential to remember that, although painful, ingratitude shouldn't discourage us from our actions. Gratitude is a powerful virtue, and even if some people fail to recognize it, that doesn't diminish its value. Building a circle of people who appreciate and acknowledge your efforts can be an antidote to the ingratitude we encounter along the way. Type 2. The permanent victim. It's impressive how some individuals become true experts at positioning themselves as victims. This trait is one of the most manipulative behaviors we can encounter. Sometimes it may seem like these people are always facing some adversity, and in many cases, they attract attention and help from others almost automatically. For those around them, this can be quite frustrating, as it creates a cycle of help that never seems to end. The impact of this behavior on the help cycle is profound. When someone constantly presents themselves as a victim, the people around them start to feel obligated to assist, even if it means sacrificing their own well-being. This creates a dynamic where the victim assumes a dependency on others' help, while the helpers may end up feeling drained. The relationship turns into an emotional game that can be difficult to break. Recognizing and avoiding the emotional manipulation of such individuals is crucial. One of the most evident signs is the constant complaining and despair over situations that could often be resolved with a bit of initiative. I often think about how important self-compassion is, but when taken too far, it can become a trap. It's essential to engage in self-reflection, asking yourself whether you are genuinely helping or merely feeding a situation that should be resolved by the person themselves. One approach I found useful is to encourage these individuals to seek solutions on their own, rather than providing immediate help. Sometimes this can be challenging, especially if the person makes a drama out of it. But instead of yielding to emotional pressure, it's important to remember that helping someone become self-aware is a much more effective form of support in the long run. It's a challenge, but it can yield surprising results. Ultimately, it's crucial to take care of your own emotional health when dealing with people who behave like permanent victims. Setting clear boundaries and communicating your needs is essential to avoid becoming a puppet in the hands of someone unwilling to change. What seems like a good intention can, in fact, turn into a burden. Learning to say no when necessary is an important step in this process. Type 3. The emotional manipulator. The emotional manipulators. These individuals possess an almost artistic ability to wield guilt and emotional blackmail. They understand the power of words and how they can influence the feelings of others. A classic example is the person who makes you feel responsible for their happiness, as if your actions are the only thing keeping them afloat. It's a dangerous game, and many fall into this trap without even realizing it. Common manipulation situations are varied, from that friend who always brings up past sacrifices to get something, to a partner who makes you feel guilty for wanting time to yourself. It's as if guilt is a tool they have mastered and used to their advantage. When we finally realize this, it's like waking up from a nightmare. We see that the relationship isn't healthy and that we are always in a position of disadvantage. Identifying the warning signs of emotional manipulation is essential for protecting our well-being. One of the main signs is the constant feeling that you owe something to this person. Another sign is the confusion that arises after interactions with them. If you often feel bad or guilty, it could be an indicator of manipulation. Emotional clarity becomes an ally, and it's important to pay attention to your own feelings and reactions. Dealing with emotional manipulators requires a combination of assertiveness and self-awareness. The first step is not to let guilt take hold. If you realize you're being manipulated, it's crucial to be firm and set boundaries. Open conversations about how you feel can be a path forward, but you need to be prepared for the possibility of resistance. Often, manipulators do not react well to losing the control they have over you. Finally, emotional protection is vital. Creating a safe space around yourself, surrounding yourself with people who respect your emotions and decisions, can help counterbalance the effects of manipulation. At the end of the day, emotional health should be a priority, and if a relationship is draining your energy, it may be time to reconsider its importance in your life. Type 4. The freeloader. The freeloader is the type of person who usually enters your life with a smile on their face and a sad story to tell. They always have an excuse for not being able to help, yet curiously they are always ready to ask for favors. It's as if their life is an endless marathon of requests, while you end up playing a supporting role in their narrative. This behavior is typical. They never offer anything in return, and this one-sided relationship can become unsustainable. One of the most notable consequences of being involved with a freeloader is the emotional exhaustion that builds up over time. You may feel like a sandbag, constantly drained while the other person seems to float in a sea of advantages. This can lead you to question your own worth, as the reciprocity that is fundamental in any friendship or relationship simply does not exist. It's a vicious cycle that can lead to frustration and even anger. Recognizing a one-sided relationship is crucial to prevent this type of interaction from continuing. Pay attention to the signs. If you are always the first to offer help and the last to be considered, you might be dealing with a freeloader. A good tip is to observe how the person reacts when you need something. If the response is always a no, followed by a new request, the balance is clearly skewed. Moreover, it's important to remember that there's nothing wrong with saying no. The fear of hurting or disappointing the other person can be a significant obstacle. However, setting healthy boundaries is essential for your emotional well-being. When you start to value yourself and understand that your time and energy are precious, it becomes easier to distance yourself from freeloaders in your life. The key to dealing with a freeloader is self-assertion. Once you recognize your own worth and what you are willing to contribute in a relationship, it becomes clearer what you will no longer accept. This way, you can build more balanced relationships where both parties feel valued and respected. Type 5. The negative person. The negative person can be a real challenge. This is the type who seems to carry a weight on their shoulders and manages to bring a cloud of pessimism to your day with every conversation. If you've ever found yourself leaving an interaction with this person feeling drained, know that it's not just you. Negativity is contagious, and often without realizing it, we begin to adopt this gloomy perspective. The characteristics of this type are well defined. They tend to have a critical view of everything, from personal life to everyday matters. Additionally, they are experts at finding the negative side of situations. making you feel compelled to justify what is positive in their presence. This dynamic can affect your energy and outlook on life, creating an environment where hope seems distant and problems always take center stage. Protecting yourself from negative influences is a skill worth developing. An effective strategy is to limit the time you spend with these individuals. If it's not possible to completely distance yourself, try to create an emotional safe space where you can maintain your energy. This can include practices like meditation, physical exercise, or simply surrounding yourself with more optimistic people. Another tip is to redirect the conversation whenever possible. When the negative person starts pointing out flaws or problems, try to introduce a positive perspective. This can not only help shift the focus of the conversation, but also encourage a subtle change in attitude. After all, we all face difficulties, but it's how we choose to view them that can truly transform our experience. Finally, it's essential to remember that you are not obligated to carry the weight of someone else's negativity. Your mental and emotional health should be a priority. By establishing healthy boundaries, you can protect yourself, while also encouraging the person to seek a more balanced view of life. Type 6. The narcissist. Identifying a narcissist can be a complicated task, especially since they tend to be charismatic and appealing at first. However, as you delve deeper into the relationship, narcissistic traits begin to emerge. A narcissist often seeks validation from others, but is simultaneously unable to offer genuine empathy or support. The focus is always on their own world, and the feelings of others are often ignored or minimized. These individuals have a special talent for manipulating the emotions of others. For instance, they may make you feel guilty for not meeting their expectations, or they can turn a conversation into a competition about who has more problems. This dynamic can be extremely draining, as you may end up feeling small and insignificant compared to the grandeur they seek to project. This manipulation is subtle but devastating. The signs that someone is narcissistic can often be clear but are frequently overlooked. If you notice that the person only talks about themselves and never seems interested in hearing your stories or challenges, that's a red flag. Additionally, how a narcissist reacts to criticism, even constructive criticism, can be a clear indication that you are dealing with someone who struggles to accept reality outside of their own reflection. Dealing with a narcissist requires a combination of firmness and self-care. Setting boundaries is crucial, as they tend to invade your emotional space. Saying no and being assertive about your needs is an effective way to protect yourself. It's also important to cultivate a support network outside of this relationship, where you can feel heard and valued. Another strategy is self-affirmation. By recognizing your own worth and the importance of your emotions, you can create a stronger barrier against emotional manipulation. Understanding that the problem lies with the narcissist and not with you is a powerful tool for maintaining your self-esteem and preventing the relationship from becoming toxic. Type 7. The disloyal persona. Disloyalty. A theme that, like a thorn in my side, always seems to arise unexpectedly. Sometimes it's difficult to perceive when someone becomes disloyal, especially when you have a strong connection with them. Disloyalty can manifest in various forms, from gossip behind your back to deeper betrayals, such as breaking promises or commitments made between friends. These behaviors can be subtle at first, but once you start to notice, it's like a light is turned on, revealing that person's true nature. Disloyalty can have devastating effects on relationships, both personal and professional. When someone we trust breaks that trust, the pain can be intense. It's not just an isolated act, but a rupture of a bond that often takes time and effort to build. The consequences can manifest as resentment, distrust, and even the loss of other relationships, as disloyalty tends to create a domino effect that spreads to those around. Identifying signs of disloyalty is crucial for protecting yourself from potential harm. Sometimes disloyalty reveals itself in small details, such as a change in how the person behaves around you, or a lack of support during critical moments. It's essential to stay attuned to these nuances and learn to trust your intuition. If something feels off, it probably is. Deep down, we all have a kind of radar that alerts us when something is amiss, and ignoring it can lead us to painful situations. Additionally, disloyalty may reflect internal issues within the disloyal person, such as insecurities or a need to feel superior. This doesn't justify the behavior, but it can help explain why some people act this way. Often, disloyalty is linked to a lack of empathy and selfishness. When someone is more focused on fulfilling their own needs than maintaining a healthy relationship, the outcome is always detrimental to those who trust that person. Ultimately, recognizing disloyalty and deciding how to respond is an important part of personal growth. Sometimes it may be necessary to distance yourself from the disloyal person, even if it's painful. Other times there may be room for an honest conversation and a chance to rebuild trust. The key is to learn from the experience, strengthen your boundaries, and seek relationships that truly nurture and support you, rather than harm you. Personal protection strategies. Protecting our energy and well-being is essential in a world that often feels filled with disloyal, manipulative, and negative individuals. Establishing boundaries is one of the most effective strategies I've learned over time. These boundaries act as a barrier that helps us filter who can enter our emotional space and who cannot. Often people do not realize they are crossing these boundaries, and it is our responsibility to let them know what is acceptable and what is not. Another practical tip is to cultivate moments of self-care. These moments are crucial for recharging our energy and maintaining sanity amid the chaos of interpersonal relationships. Whether through meditation, physical exercise, or simply spending time alone, it's vital to find what works for you. I've learned that taking care of myself is not a selfish act, but rather a way to ensure I can be present and healthy for those who truly value my presence. Furthermore, surrounding ourselves with people who have a positive mindset and who offer genuine support is a powerful strategy. Healthy relationships act as a safety net. When we are surrounded by people who appreciate and encourage us, it becomes easier to distance ourselves from negative and disloyal influences. Of course, we can't always completely avoid these individuals, but having a strong support group can make all the difference. Learning to say no is also a valuable skill that can protect our mental and emotional health. Often, we feel pressured to please others, but this can lead us into situations that drain our energy. By establishing boundaries and saying no when necessary, we are reclaiming our space and prioritizing our well-being. It's an act of self-love, and surprisingly, it can even inspire others to do the same. Lastly, maintaining a growth mindset is fundamental. Instead of viewing negative experiences as failures, we can see them as opportunities for learning. Every interaction, even the most challenging, has something to teach us. This perspective helps us become more resilient and develop better skills for protecting our emotions and energy. Reflections on help and relationships. The question of whom we offer help to is more complex than it seems. Often we are driven by empathy and the desire to assist, but it's important to reflect on the motivations behind this. Helping others is a fundamental part of our social lives, but when that help is not valued or is used manipulatively, it can become a burden. It's essential to evaluate our relationships and identify who truly deserves our time and effort. One guiding reflection for me is the idea of reciprocity in relationships. When we help someone, we often expect that person to be willing to support us in return at some point. However, in many situations, we encounter individuals who only wish to receive without offering anything in exchange. This can be exhausting, and recognizing these dynamics is crucial to avoid one-sided relationships that drain our energy. Additionally, it's important to understand that interpersonal relationships are a reflection of ourselves. Often, we attract people who mirror our own insecurities or behavioral patterns. This doesn't mean we are responsible for others' actions, but rather that we should be aware of how our own decisions and attitudes can influence the relationships we build. Self-awareness is a powerful tool for avoiding emotional traps. The nature of interpersonal relationships also requires a certain degree of vulnerability. We cannot fully shield ourselves from disappointments and disillusionments. However, by opening ourselves to the possibility of genuine and healthy relationships, we can create bonds that truly support us. It's not easy, but every step taken towards this is worthwhile. Finally, constant self-evaluation is essential for personal growth. By looking inward and reflecting on our own practices and behaviors, we can identify patterns that we need to change. This not only makes us better friends and partners, but also helps us build healthier and more balanced relationships. After all, the quality of the relationships we cultivate in our lives often determines our overall happiness and well-being. Now that we have explored these 7 types of people who can drain your energy, I want you to pause and reflect. How many of these traits have you encountered in your life? Have you ever felt stuck in a cycle of attempts and frustrations? The truth is that by recognizing these patterns, we gain power. We have the ability to choose who we want to surround ourselves with. Remember, Protecting your time and energy is not selfish, it's a necessity. Think about the people who truly matter, those who bring light and growth to your path. Who are they, and who can you leave behind? If you have experienced any of these types, share your story in the comments. Your experience could help someone going through something similar. Let's create a community that supports mutual growth, where each of us learns to surround ourselves with positivity. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you won't miss any content that could transform your life. Remember, the wisdom of life lies in the small daily choices. So what choice will you make today?